You know when Kendrick says watch the party die, you gotta stop the party after a while. Like, if you don't stop the party and keep it till 50, you see where...
The past year felt like the world was hanging on by a thread, broken, bruised, and bleeding from every angle. Whether it was politics, culture wars, or petitions tossed around like grenades. Division ran so deep that even music wasn't safe from the chaos. And then came the samurai of rap, Kendrick Lamar, the one voice who refused to be silent when the world needed sharp words the most. He warned that the party was over, and when Kendrick speaks, the industry trembles. On September 11th, 2024, Kendrick Lamar dropped a cryptic Instagram post that instantly sent shockwaves through hip-hop. A photo of two beaten-up black Air Force One sneakers appeared with no explanation, just a song attached. But this wasn't just any song. This was Kendrick's first release since his explosive and historic clash with Drake, the same war that had fans glued to every bar and every subliminal shot. While Drake's camp hinted at another round, Kendrick made it clear he wasn't chasing clout anymore. He was on a bigger mission.
I don't feel like you came home humble, bro. Enough. And then when you got out, I don't feel like you was focused, bro, the way you should have been. I feel like you taking your blessing for granted. Came home playing again.
The surprise track ran 5 full minutes, raw and untitled, released without warning that same evening. And those shoes? They weren't just props. They became the centerpiece of the mystery. Black Air Force Ones, the ultimate symbol of chaos and menace, turned into a cryptic calling card. Internet detectives worked overtime and traced the shoes back to an eBay seller in North Little Rock. Within hours, the $70 pair was snatched up, and the hype spread like wildfire across timelines, forums, and fan pages. Suddenly, everyone was asking, what message was Kendrick really sending with this eerie drop? The moment the internet cracked the code, everything flipped on its head.
I just don't got my twin, bro. I don't got my friends, bro. I'm just up, right? I'm up, bro. The nigga who I be with every day, I don't got him no more, bro. I'm up, bro. I don't know what to do, bro. Like, and I ain't lose no to a tragic or now. I lost to betrayal, bro. You signing that one piece of paper, signing your initials on this one piece of paper could get me a life sentence, man. I get a life sentence all this piece of paper you signed, bro. Damn.
The couple who originally bought the shoes canceled the order immediately, then flipped the script by relisting them in an auction starting at a jaw-dropping $5,000.
Righteous, I call you hip-hop Jesus because that's how people look at you. The plight that Kendrick seems to be fighting is now clearly aimed at people who he thinks are frauds. A lot of the industry, they're frauds. If you can't outmaneuver him, sometimes you gotta wait till he checkmates himself because you don't have the moves to beat him.
Suddenly, those busted black Air Forces weren't just sneakers, they were relics of hip-hop history. And to make it even crazier, the owners claimed rights to the image itself, announcing plans to drop t-shirts with the infamous photo.
This was a misstep for me. Not the song being whack, I don't think it's whack, but I think it's a misstep. The rapper who has been known as the we gonna be alright rapper, the guy who is for the culture, he spent an entire career standing on the right side of those fights, going against the establishment. But we've seen a different Kendrick Lamar this year. This is a Kendrick Lamar who, whether you want to admit it or not, this is a Kendrick Lamar who's moving off of self-admitted hatred. Not maybe as righteous as maybe you think.
Just like that, a pair of scuffed kicks became a cultural artifact with its own price tag. At first, fans thought Kendrick's release was just another entry in his long catalog of cryptic, layered storytelling.
I love when artists grit their teeth.
You created this massive cultural award-winning anthem out of a battle rap song.
My intent from day one was to always keep the nature of it as a sport. I think a lot of people was putting rap to the back and you didn't see that grit, you didn't see that bite anymore.
It's not enough.
But looking back a year later, that song hits different. It wasn't just music, it was prophecy. Kendrick wasn't rapping about a party in the club. He was talking about the entire culture, diagnosing its sickness and predicting the cracks that would split hip-hop and the world itself. And just like he warned, the next 12 months proved him right. The party didn't just cool down, it collapsed in front of our eyes. Empires began crumbling one by one. Titans like Diddy, Lil Durk, and Big U suddenly found themselves tied to massive RICO cases, staring down decades behind bars.
What we're doing is using our brain to get out of the ghetto any way we can. So we tell these stories, and they tend to be violent because our world tends to be filled with violence.
At the same time, young Thug shocked the world, beating his own Rico and walking free, only to set his sights on dismantling the one artist prospering under his label.
Get it back in blood. Get it back in blood.
Meanwhile, Gunna stopped moving like a superstar and started moving like a street politician, throwing shade at nearly everyone he'd ever collaborated with. The backlash fractured Atlanta's once united trap scene, creating chaos where loyalty used to live. And in the middle of it all, Thug himself started to unravel, breaking down under the weight of the war he had unleashed. But the collapse wasn't just about a few artists catching heat. It was an avalanche of stars exposing themselves when the pressure got real.
They used to say, but you also mentioned a song, they be like, they be saying Sly for Vaughn, I think they trolling me. Yo, by the way, that song is fire, I ain't gonna lie.
For some reason, I just don't see the comments no more. For some odd reason. Might be the water. You be seeing the comments a lot?
They kind of chilled out.
Why?
Over the past year, masks came off, and the true faces of hip-hop's biggest names were revealed for the world to judge. Kanye West spiraled through multiple Twitter meltdowns, burning bridges and isolating himself from the same world that once worshipped him. Each post felt like another nail in the coffin of the legend who once claimed he couldn't be touched, and it didn't stop there. DJ Academics, called out directly by Kendrick Lamar during his war with Drake, went from media mouthpiece to messy headline himself. Instead of just reporting drama, he became part of it, caught on blast for pushing propaganda and moving in highly inappropriate ways when he thought nobody was looking. His credibility took hit after hit, proving Kendrick wasn't lying when he dragged his name into the battle. Even veterans weren't safe. Lil Wayne tried to slide back into the spotlight, taking subtle jabs at Kendrick's shine, especially when Kendrick was overlooked for the Super Bowl halftime stage. Wayne's attempts to downplay K-Dot's accomplishments only added fuel to debates, and later in the year, the culture got to decide if Kendrick really earned that crown. Meanwhile, Pusha T found himself fighting his own label, silenced over content they didn't want released, before finally breaking free to speak his truth. And the censorship didn't end there. Law Brianna, in an unprecedented move, tried to gag Kendrick's influence through legal filings tied directly to their feud. It was a chilling reminder of just how far the industry and its insiders would go to keep power from slipping away. But this division wasn't just in the booth, it spilled out everywhere. Outside the studio, America fractured even harder. Trump clawed his way back to the presidency, stoking an already boiling political climate. The country hit violent breaking points, with shocking flash moments like the Charlie Kirk assassination attempt shaking the nation. Every headline, every scandal mirrored the prophecy Kendrick dropped a year earlier. The death of unity, the collapse of an era, and the hard line between artists chasing substance versus a culture addicted to spectacle. Watch the Party Die wasn't just another track. It was a chilling manifesto, a warning shot fired straight into the heart of hip-hop and society itself. Kendrick might not have known every detail of what was coming, but somehow, he saw the collapse before anyone else dared to admit it. His message was brutal. It's time to watch the party die. He spit. This stuff got too wicked to apologize. It's different. Get him whacked and disqualified. We even kill the killers because they like taking innocent lives. Burn the whole village. We start over. It's really that time. That wasn't just rap. It was prophecy dressed as poetry. From the opening bars, it was obvious. Kendrick wasn't aiming to play nice after his war with Drake. He wasn't interested in patching things up or offering apologies. He wanted to torch the old system, burn down the entire village, and rebuild hip-hop from the ashes. The gloves were off, and the reset button had been smashed. No more fake unity, no more false idols. It almost felt like he was speaking directly about his own mission when he stepped up to battle Drake only months earlier. That clash wasn't to just two rappers trading bars. It was Kendrick-ass declaration of war against an industry built on spectacle instead of substance. And make no mistake, he walked away from that fight not just as a winner, but but as the architect of a new era.
Surprised to see you on Kendrick's album, but what's that relationship been like, kind of collabing with him?
Me and Kendrick, we got a lot of little things in common that people probably won't understand. Both of us, we Geminis. Me and him, we could talk, and he understand me beyond and what the internet theories. You know, it's like he got a different perception of me. He ain't count. Like he say we gonna do something, we do it. No, Kendrick from the streets for real too. Oh, that boy, I got a lot of love for him.
Later, Kendrick confirmed it himself in an interview, explaining his reasoning for going after one of hip-hop's biggest powerhouses. He wasn't chasing clout or headlines. He wanted to bring the spirit of raw competition back to the culture. "I love when artists sink their teeth into it," he said, daring others to rise to the challenge. But then he dropped the question that still echoes today: what are you competing for? That wasn't a throwaway line. It was Kendrick demanding accountability from an entire industry that had lost its soul. Exactly. 2 years before this track even dropped, Kendrick Lamar had already shed the savior label that fans tried to force onto him. He made it clear he wasn't here to play hero or rescue the culture. Before fixing the world around him, he had to face his own demons first. He dropped the line, "I'm not your savior," and fans who really listened understood the weight of that message. His war with Drake wasn't just about bars. It was about tearing down the fake standards, smashing cultural boundaries, and rebuilding hip-hop into something rawer, more authentic, and more dangerous than ever. But even with all that in mind, there's one line from Watch the Party Die that cuts deeper than the rest. "We even kill the killers 'cause they like taking innocent lives." That wasn't just a bar. It was a mirror to society's ugliest truths. Kendrick wasn't only speaking on the streets or the rap game. He was pointing a finger at the violence poisoning the world at large. Because think about what's intoxicated not just hip-hop, but everyday life since this new decade began. As Kendrick stayed silent in interviews, only speaking through his music, the world outside kept spiraling. And when you line up his lyrics against reality, the overlap is chilling.
I just don't got my twin, bro. I don't got my friends, bro. I'm just up, right? I'm up, bro. The nigga who I be with every day, I don't got him no more, bro. I'm up, bro.
Take this. According to the Center for Homeland Defense and Security's K-12 school shooting database, the 2021 to 2022 school year, right after the world reopened from the COVID-19 lockdowns, recorded the highest number of school shootings since the year 2000. A shocking analysis from the Kaser Family Foundation revealed that student exposure to school shootings had nearly tripled since 1999, with the biggest spike happening during those pandemic years. Kendrick wasn't just rapping. He was documenting the chaos, turning statistics into prophecy. His silence in public only made the music feel heavier, like every verse was carved out of the headlines we didn't want to face. From 2020 to 2024, the numbers tell a story scarier than any rap lyric could. Numbers so dark they feel like they were ripped straight from a nightmare. Gun violence didn't just rise, it exploded. In 2021 and 2022, the US hit record highs in firearm deaths, tens of thousands of lives lost to bullets. By 2023, the official count hit 46,728 firearm-related deaths, a number so staggering it shook the nation. And yet that wasn't even the highest total ever recorded. The bloodshed just kept climbing, and the cycle of violence became impossible to ignore. And hip-hop reflected it all like a mirror to the madness. One of the biggest anthems of 2021, Back in Blood, was practically a war cry about seeking revenge on your enemies. Lil Durk was previewing the track when he got the devastating news. His childhood friend and longtime collaborator, King Von, had been gunned down in the streets. That tragedy etched itself into the DNA of the song, turning a hit record into a chilling reminder of how closely art and violence walk together. But the curse didn't stop there. Back in Blood's very own artist, Pooh Shiesty, has been locked up since 2022, serving time on a federal firearms conspiracy charge.
That hurt a lot. You know what I'm talking about, it hurt a whole lot. I blame myself for not being mentally prepared for a letdown, for just automatically mentally putting myself in that position like somebody told me that was my position. It made me feel like not getting this opportunity. And when I felt like you guys reminded me that I ain't without y'all. And that's an amazing reality.
And then came the twist that made the entire culture freeze. In October 2024, barely a month after Kendrick dropped Watch the Party Die, Lil Durk himself was snatched up by federal authorities. The charge:
Hey, we still going?
Nah, this is time sensitive.
conspiracy to commit a murder for hire against Quando Rondo, the very man tied to the altercation that took King Von's life 4 years earlier. It wasn't just music anymore. It was prophecy bleeding into real life, where lyrics and headlines became indistinguishable. 3 of the most promising rising stars of this new generation of hip-hop have now either lost their lives or their freedom to the same monster, gun violence. And the tragedy doesn't end with the artists themselves. The poison trickles down, fueled and magnified by the digital circus of social media. After King Von's death, hashtags like Slide for Von swept across timelines, turning mourning into a viral war chant that pressured entire communities into cycles of revenge. What started as grief became a rallying cry for blood, and while the bodies piled up, internet personalities cashed in. Figures like DJ Academics, Adam22, Traplaw Ross, and countless others built careers documenting every violent headline, every crime scene, every death tied to hip-hop culture. It became entertainment, clips of shootings, mugshots, and beef breakdowns racking up millions of views, while the real-life consequences ripped families apart.
Carter 6, you said Carter 6 is trash. That's fine. That's what you want to say. But let me tell you something about my father and Carter 6. This is what I hate about you kids. The fact that y'all can get on TikTok and do a dance to it, that don't mean that it's trash, babe. Okay? The fact that you can get on TikTok and do a little 1-2 little viral moment for it, that don't mean that it's trash, babe. My dad was talking real shit. It's stuff on that album that you can hear in 2K, in games, at malls, at all type of stuff. It's universal, my love. Y'all need to take y'all mind out of the TikTok world and get to the real bag. Whereas my dad is a lyricist, babe. My dad really talks. So if you can't understand it, please move silent like the GM lasagna and get out of here. Thanks.
The line between commentary and exploitation blurred so badly that fans began to wonder if some of these platforms were amplifying the very violence they claimed to cover.
Drake needs to learn from Diddy and Jay, because Drake is like 38 now. And you know when Kendrick says watch the party die, you gotta stop the party after a while. Like, if you don't stop the party and keep it till 50, you see where Diddy's at. At some point, we ain't saying get married and have kids, but just exit stage left. I'm gonna catch you later.
This cultural reset Kendrick hinted at wasn't just about breaking Drake's monotony or dismantling formulaic music.
Day Free had a moment. He asked me, he said, what are you getting from this? He says, is he paying you? And that was the most insulting thing and I had conversations with these men for a while. But the very idea that I was like a purchasable commodity was so disgusting. I reminded him, I said, I've been doing this for over 10 years. I've been doing this for over 15 years. How did you think I became me? His idea was, well, if you're not getting paid by this guy, if Drake ain't paying you, why do you lean that much in that direction? And I was like, I've never gotten paid. Like, the people who I've defended the most, I've never gotten paid from.
It was about something far more sinister. The way society itself was normalizing destruction, glamorizing chaos, and feeding it back to the youth.
He treating you like how when a thot's in a DM, I ain't trying to link her tonight. When he needs you, he'll send you DMs, he'll play old buddy with you, but he really don't f with you. You showing him mad love, he don't show you no love. You think Drake shows you love?
Yeah, Drake showed me a lot of love.
How? What's he do to show you love?
I got exclusive info.
That's not love. What do you do with that exclusive info? You say it to the world, you gas it up 10 times more. He's using you as a free a billboard, free promo.
And whether Kendrick meant it or not, his words mirrored exactly what unfolded after Watch the Party Die hit the world.
Showing you love is, act, I'm in the city. Here's 10 tickets to my show. Backstage, pull up. He sent Ice Spice a jet before he sent you one. Act, you're the biggest media platform, Act.
What that got to do with Drake? He's the biggest rapper.
Oh, Ag, you're promoting him. Ag, that could be dropping ass music, but you won't say that because you're a #1 fan. Doing backflips.
He rapped, "Why reason with these guys if they can't see the future first? Why argue with these clowns if the circus is well at work? Just walk that man down. That'll do everyone a solid. It's love, but tough love sometimes gotta result in violence."
One hint I'll give you. Okay, it's a Drake track.
It's a Drake diss.
No.
We know what it is.
No. It's not a diss. It's not a diss. And it's on Scorpion.
What's that?
He's never heard that album.
That's a horrible start. Okay.
If you parade in gluttony without giving truth to the youth, the graveyard is company. That wasn't just lyricism. It was a sermon, a grim truth spoken at a time when the world needed to hear it most. Just tell us what casket to choose.
If you care that much about lyrics, just read a book.
If you care that much about lyrics,
ask the rappers to write books and read their books, read their tweets. The music is more than just the lyrics. Nobody gives a shit.
This idiot or an idiot.
I listen to a song, don't care about what they say. They could be speaking German for all I give a shit about. Because I don't care about no lyrics. It's noises. I don't care. What would anybody care?
That bar hit like a gunshot, direct, cold, and impossible to ignore. Kendrick cut through the noise, pointing at a culture that partied harder than it lived, where the grind got replaced with scams, clout chasing, and chaos. He spit, "They glorify scamming. You get shipped over this credit card."
Rap's dead, bro. I'm sorry. It just is.
Let's not go there.
We don't gotta go there, but it's dead.
Let's not go there. You know what? Honestly, it'll never die.
Not die as far as like full on die.
It'll never die. What do you mean? Rappers,
music's just dry right now, bro. Like, chat, who do y'all listen to right now, bro?
It was a weird NBA season. That's all it was, you know?
It's alright.
New season starts in like 5 days anyway.
Facts. Brand new season, brand new year.
That wasn't fiction. It was a mirror of the times. From viral fraud stories to whole communities glamorizing quick schemes, Kendrick forced everyone to ask, "What are you really working for?" And when the circus tried to drag him in, Kendrick refused to argue. He dropped a single line that crushed an entire era. F the big three. It's just big me.
Talk to some rappers, bro. Listen, I'm gonna keep it a bean with you. Bro, I talked to a few rappers, and obviously they're not woke rappers, they're not lyrical rappers. A bunch of them feel like Kendrick killed hip-hop, bro. He made hip-hop so lame where it's like, it's just over-analyzing. Like, this is about to be like battle rap again. Like the whole genre is battle rap. They feel like it's harder to get attention doing what they did because Kendrick just turned this into a Me Too movement. You feel what I'm saying?
With that, he didn't just fire at Drake, Cole, or anyone else. He redrew the map of hip-hop.
In a matter of count one, not guilty. Racketeer and he beat. Shut of Cassie, he beat. Oh, we back on road, Chad. Oh, we back on road. Yo, Cassie, get the on out of here, Cassie. Yeah, my boy was doing some prostitution. If he definitely not guilty for Cassie, he ain't guilty for Jane Doe. She's a. This is at least some redemption for Diddy. Not guilty. 2 out of 5, chat. That boy beat the case. I wish this judge could have dismissed all them civil suits too. The pre-freak off is crazy, chat. I might have to put it on RSVP. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, chat.
He separated himself from the noise, positioning not just his skill set, but his morals, his words, and his actions as the gold standard for leadership in a culture drowning in clowns. Because let's be real, Kendrick was drawing a clear line in the sand. He was saying, why waste time reasoning with people who can't even see the future? Why argue with clowns when the circus is already running at full speed? And in today's world, the circus isn't in a tent. It's on our phones. Social media turned buffoonery into full-blown careers. You don't need talent anymore, just viral clips and brainless content. That SY terms like brain rot blew up in recent years, because that S exactly what we reconsuming. Endless loops of drama, memes, scams, and chaos. Gluttony disguised as entertainment. And Kendrick ES warning was brutally simple. If you parade in gluttony without giving truth to the youth, the graveyard is company. Just tell us what casket to choose. In other words, keep feeding the world junk, and you're just choosing the size of the coffin we'll all be buried in. Following a path of gluttony only leads to emptiness, and no story captured that truth better than the way Young Thug spoke on Kendrick Lamar while locked up behind bars. Even from prison, Thug seemed more focused on sabotaging his own artist Gunna's career than anything else. Instead of building, he was tearing down, moving with bitterness and politics that had nothing to do with the music. He allegedly plotted to drop an album the very same day as Gunna, flooding it with features from across the industry, not out of creativity, but out of spite. And when numbers came in showing that country star Morgan Wallen was dominating charts, Thug's desperation hit another level. Without even knowing who Wallen was or what he stood for, Thug wanted him on the project, proof that it wasn't about art anymore, just chasing clout and chart positions. It was gluttony in real time, grabbing at anything, anyone, to keep the spotlight alive. But here's where it gets even more revealing. Thug wanted Kendrick Lamar on the project too, despite knowing Kendrick's whole movement was the opposite of this circus. And when Kendrick ultimately refused, staying true to his principles, Thug snapped. He ranted about how Kendrick would never be the leader of the culture, claiming that because Kendrick didn't collaborate with everyone, didn't chase every trend, and wasn't outside, he didn't deserve the crown. What Thug failed to realize is that Kendrick's rejection was the point. He wasn't parading in gluttony, he wasn't playing the same game, and that's exactly why his words carried weight while others collapsed under their own chaos. Kendrick isn't the type to parade rappers around just to keep his name hot in the streets the way Drake does, lining up Lil Baby, 21 Savage, Moneybagg Yo, Young Thug, and whoever else is buzzing at the time. Kendrick plays a completely different game, and his strategy exposes the gulf between him and every other so-called leader in hip-hop. Yes, Kendrick has put artists on, but the way he does it is surgical, purposeful, and always tied back to his bigger vision. Take Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Instead of tossing out random features to chase streams, Kendrick placed artists like Kodak Black in moments that carried weight. Kodak wasn't just another verse. He was strategically positioned, even given an interlude, to document his rise, his struggles, and how cycles of pain and oppression can mold someone into a flawed but evolving human being. Kendrick turned Kodak alias voice into a living example of what generational trauma looks like. And in doing so, he gave truth to the youth, even if it came through a lens most people labeled too raw, too negative, too violent. That's what separates him. Kendrick isn't scrambling to stay trending or to flood the timeline with fast food music. He doesn't chase every viral moment, every collab, every TikTok-ready hook. He's not part of the ADHD content cycle where relevance lasts 24 hours and then dies. Every move has intention, every verse has weight, and every feature is there to amplify a bigger story. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, Young Thug's jail phone calls painted the exact opposite picture. Instead of legacy and meaning, his conversations were filled with bitterness, talking down on artists he worked with, plotting collabs out of spite, and dragging nearly everyone from Atlanta's hip-hop scene over the last decade. It wasn't growth, it wasn't leadership, it was chaos exposed in real time, while Kendrick was building something that felt bigger than music itself. And what we were left with is nothing short of a circus, a spectacle so loud and messy that the music itself gets drowned out. Instead of celebrating Young Thug's release, instead of seeing him step into a new chapter and rebuild his legacy, the narrative was poisoned by gluttony, gossip, and pillow talking. Every bitter rant and every exposed phone call became part of the downfall, forcing him to face consequences that no amount of music could cover up. The party wasn't just dead, it was devouring its own stars. So why on earth would Kendrick Lamar waste his energy arguing about a feature he turned down? Why debate Young Thug's claim that Kendrick wasn't putting enough people on? Kendrick's entire point was that you don't argue with clowns if the circus is already in full swing. And the same applies to Kanye West. The same applies to Lil Wayne. Why reason with men who can't even see past their own chaos to understand the bigger future? Look at Kanye West. Once praised as a generational genius, a man who could have gone down as the defining artist of the 21st century, his catalog of classics already cemented, his emphasis on authenticity unmatched. But instead of securing that crown, Kanye torched his own legacy with hateful words and explosive rants that stained everything he built. And here's the kicker. 6 months after Kendrick dropped Watch the Party Die, Kanye did exactly that. Burned his entire party to the ground. The fallout wasn't just professional, it was personal. He may have left generational scars on his own family, publicly humiliating the mother of his children and detonating his image in front of the world. Kendrick didn't need to say a word. Life itself confirmed the prophecy. Kanye West didn't just self-destruct. He exposed traumas, spewed hate, and scorched everything around him in the process. He publicly aired disturbing childhood memories, praised the Mustache Man in ways that shocked the globe, and even dragged Jay-Z and Beyoncé's children with demeaning slurs that crossed every possible line. And in the middle of his spiral, he couldn't resist taking aim at Kendrick Lamar, too. The Super Bowl stage rattled Wayne, but it rattled Kanye even more, unleashing a Twitter storm that pulled Kendrick into the crossfire. Kanye ranted, "Bro, Kendrick Lamar cannot rap. Wayne got way more life bars. I got more bars. Kendrick doesn't have one bar where I say, I wish I said that. Kendrick and Tyler, the creator, are the two most overrated so-called artists. Please order more security." These weren't just petty shots. They were desperate cries from a man trying to tear others down while his own empire crumbled. He even mocked Kendrick's stature in hip-hop, saying, "King of the West Coast, but never king of the world." He never was. He's a good kid from a mad city, but Lucy and Grange went too far with this Kendrick stuff. Kanye blamed industry execs, accusing them of inflating Kendrick's legacy, claiming, "Y'all dumb industry plants ruined the King of the Underground album. With that rap tone all over the place, Playboy Cardi made my favorite music until I heard Kendrick on it." And he didn't stop there. He called Kendrick a pawn, alleging that his success was manufactured, dismissing him entirely. But Kendrick never needed to respond, because Kanye's words exposed more about himself than anyone else. Kendrick's silence turned into power, while Kanye's jealousy and paranoia laid bare his insecurities for the world to dissect. This is what Kendrick meant when he asked, "Why argue with clowns if the circus is already in motion?" The last few years have proven it. When the mask slips, envy, fear, and desperation always reveal the truth. Now let us talk about Lil Wayne, because just days before Kendrick Lamar's Watch the Party Die shook the world, the NFL announced Kendrick as the headliner for the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show in New Orleans. This should have been a moment of unity, a celebration of one of hip-hop's sharpest lyricists taking the biggest stage in the world. But instead of congratulating Kendrick or staying silent, Wayne reacted like the slot had been stolen right out of his hands. He hopped on Instagram with cryptic posts that made it clear he felt robbed, bitter, and destroyed over not being chosen. But the drama didn't stop with one salty post. Wayne turned his bitterness into a month-long spectacle, hijacking his long-awaited Thaw Carter 6 rollout, his first album in 5 years, and the 6th chapter in one of the most legendary series in hip-hop history. Instead of focusing on the music, he made the entire rollout about how he was snubbed by the Super Bowl committee. Every move, every teaser, every headline, Wayne kept circling back to the same grievance, and the pettiness reached another level with his announcement stunt. He revealed Thaw Carter 6's release date in a Cetaphil commercial. Yes, Cetaphil, the skincare brand for sensitive skin. The whole plot of the commercial? We're all a little sensitive. The not-so-subtle message was crystal clear. Wayne was clowning the Super Bowl decision, framing himself as someone who wouldn't be there because he had bigger things to focus on. His album. He even emphasized the tagline, "Hey, we still going? Nah, this is time-sensitive." Wayne wanted the world to know he was doubling down on the idea that the NFL's choice was a mistake. Before Kendrick was even announced as the Super Bowl performer, Lil Wayne was already campaigning for the slot. When asked why he thought he deserved it, Wayne boasted that he was going to work so hard, his music would become undeniable, making him a guaranteed choice for halftime glory. So with all that talk, all that confidence, surely Thaw Carter VI had to be a masterpiece, right? A comeback so strong that the NFL would look foolish for passing him up. Well, before the album even dropped, Wayne sat down for a promo interview with Rolling Stone, where he previewed a handful of songs from the project. And instead of just focusing on the music, he used the moment to take more shots at Kendrick and the NFL. After playing one track, Wayne looked at the room and sneered. They could have had some real music, mimicking guitar strums, but instead they got rapping. Everyone in the room knew exactly who he was aiming at. Then, after another preview, he doubled down, saying flat out, "They fucked up." The entire narrative around the Carter 6 became less about Wayne's music and more about Wayne's bitterness. He couldn't let go of the idea that the Super Bowl chose Kendrick over him, so he built his rollout around it, almost daring fans and critics to believe his album was the real music the NFL had supposedly missed out on. But here's the twist. After all the boasting, all the shade, all the claims that his music was undeniable, Wayne finally released The Carter 6 in June 2025. And it wasn't the groundbreaking moment he promised. In fact, the most talked about track on the entire project wasn't a lyrical masterpiece at all. It was a song called Elephant Sounds. And instead of being praised for its genius, the internet clowned it, turning it into a meme more than a cultural moment. Wayne's Carter 6 backlash got so bad that his own daughter had to jump online and defend the quality of her father's music. Imagine that. One of hip-hop's biggest legends having his rollout collapse so badly that family had to step in to protect his legacy from becoming a meme. And in that moment, the question practically asked itself, what purpose would it have served Kendrick Lamar to respond to any of this circus? None. The truth always reveals itself. When bitterness runs the show, insecurities eventually spill out for the world to see. But Kendrick and Ass bars were not just aimed at artists exposing their own flaws. They were about the lifestyle itself. Because sooner or later, the life you live will catch up to you. If you parade in gluttony without giving truth to the youth, the graveyard is company. Just tell us what casket to choose. That wasn't metaphor anymore. It became reality. Just days after Kendrick dropped Watch the Party Die, headlines broke about Diddy's infamous parties collapsing into scandal. The party literally died. And the timing was almost eerie, as if Kendrick had summoned it. For decades, Diddy stood as one of the most influential moguls in hip-hop history, the man who pushed the culture into mainstream global dominance like no one before him. But the same empire that lifted him up also became the very thing that dragged him down. Accusations, lawsuits, betrayals. The empire crumbled under the weight of excess and indulgence. What once looked untouchable suddenly looked fragile. And when the smoke cleared, Diddy stood isolated. A cautionary tale of what happens when power, vanity, and gluttony consume a man. Kendrick's warning wasn't just rap. It was prophecy, a dark mirror held up to Hollywood and the music industry at large. Everything you build can vanish the moment the lifestyle swallows you whole. At a moment's notice, the curtain was yanked back, exposing some of the darkest, most disturbing stories the culture had ever seen. From the horrifying abuse allegations Cassie endured at the hands of Diddy, to whispers of him allegedly torching Kid Cudi's car, to the notorious freak-offs that made headlines and shook the industry, suddenly the glitz and glamour of Hollywood revealed its rotten core. The scandals grew so intense that even DJ Academics, someone known for thriving off controversy, warned Drake to chill out and stop living that same reckless Hollywood lifestyle. He told Drake to take the advice Kendrick Lamar had already laid out in Watch the Party Die. And speaking of Academics, Kendrick seemed to have predicted his role in all of this with bars that cut right through. Influencers talk down, 'cause I am not with the basic stuff, but they don't hate me. They hate the man that I represent, the type of man that would never deride for a favor, the type of man that resides in patience long before this beef. Kendrick wasn't just talking to Drake. He was calling out the mouthpieces, the so-called tastemakers who built their platforms off propaganda and clout chasing. Because ever since the beef erupted, Academics has shown his true colors. Was all his posturing just about securing favors from Drake? Was his relentless defense of OVO a loyalty move? Or was it about chasing a paycheck? His platform became propaganda central, especially through his alt account, Academics TV. where his minions churned out anti-Kendrick posts daily, so disrespectful and shameless that fans began calling it outright obsession. And the irony? When Academics himself actually showed up at one of Kendrick's concerts, all that digital bark turned into awkward silence. The same man who spent months clowning, disrespecting, and demeaning Kendrick online suddenly looked small in the flesh, face to face with the very artist whose prophecy he had mocked. Kendrick's camp wasn't about to let DJ Academics slide. Word is, his people pressed him directly, demanding answers about the hate-fueled rhetoric plastered all over his platforms. They asked the question fans were already whispering. Was it Drake himself feeding Academics the propaganda? Was OVO pulling the strings, paying AK to do the dirty work while Drake stayed clean in public? And if so, what was the payout? What exactly had Drake ever given him in return for the endless attacks on Kendrick and other rappers? Because here's the reality. Whether Academics saw Drake as a friend, a mentor, or simply a pipeline of exclusives, the lesson became clear after Watch the Party Die. Nobody in this industry is dying for you. Allegiances flip, loyalty bends, and when the circus ends, everyone is out for themselves. And Academics nearly learned that the hard way. His entire empire almost collapsed when screenshots surfaced of him in a Discord chat asking a 14-year-old disturbing, inappropriate questions. The backlash was instant and brutal. Fans and critics calling him out, demanding accountability. While the details of the interaction remained too vile to repeat, the damage was done. His credibility was shredded, exposing the shaky moral compass at the core of his empire. Yet despite that, Academics doubled down on his role as Drake's #1 cheerleader. He built his brand around defending OVO at all costs, even when Drake rarely acknowledged him publicly. Drake tossed him breadcrumbs, occasional exclusives, inside info, little leaks that let Academics post first and claim clout. And in Ac's mind, that was enough. He called it a perk, but everyone else saw it for what it was: dependency. A grown man willing to risk his platform, his reputation, even his legacy, just to be Drake's unofficial spokesman. The wildest part? Half the so-called exclusive info Drake feeds Academics isn't even real. It is smoke and mirrors designed to manipulate the media narrative. Academics parrots it, his followers amplify it, and suddenly, the lie becomes the headline. And just like that, Ac has become one of Drake's loudest megaphones, even if it means torching his own credibility in the process. But the impact has stretched far beyond Academics. In doing this, he's carved a dangerous divide within hip-hop and internet culture as a whole. On one side, you've got legacy media, journalists who've spent years documenting the culture, building reputations, and holding artists accountable. On the other, new media, streamers, podcasters, and personalities who trade depth for clicks, drama, and viral moments. Academics positioned himself right in the middle, and Drake has only fueled that divide further. Drake went as far as dissing respected hip-hop journalists like Rob Markman, dismissing their accomplishments as irrelevant. Instead, he ran to platforms like Bobby Altoff's podcast, where he mocked loser story journalists, claiming they don't even deserve an interview. That wasn't just shade. It was a full-on dismissal of the very people who helped build his career's narrative in the first place. And instead of sitting down with the culture's historians, Drake has championed a new wave of media faces. Streamers like Kai Cenat, XQC, and Aiden Ross. The problem? Many of these figures don't even study his music. Some openly admit that lyrics in hip-hop aren't a priority to them at all. Yet these are the voices Drake has chosen to legitimize, the ones he wants carrying the torch into the next era. So what does that mean? It means Drake has cut ties with the old guard, replacing seasoned journalists with internet clowns who prioritize clout over craft. And in the process, he's reshaping how hip-hop gets covered, trading substance for spectacle, exactly what Kendrick warned about in Watch the Party Die. We've now seen the actions, the words, and the propaganda from all three of these characters in real time. XQC may not even know Drake's music, but Aiden Ross and DJ Academics, they've been loud megaphones pushing Drake's agenda non-stop since the day Watch the Party Die hit the world. They've carried his narrative, defended his every move, and painted Kendrick as the villain, even as the cracks in their own credibility started to show. And this is exactly where Kendrick's bars hit hardest. Influencers talk down, 'cause I'm not with the basic stuff, but they don't hate me. They hate the man that I represent. The type of man that never derides 'cause I want a favor. The type of man that resides in patience. That wasn't just a clever line. It was a declaration. Kendrick was drawing the line between men who sell out for clout and favors and men who stand firm on principle no matter the cost. But Academics couldn't resist making it about himself. Over the last few months, he pushed the bold claim that Kendrick's rap battle against Drake didn't just shake the culture. It temporarily killed hip-hop altogether. He told his rapper friends that Kendrick shifted the climate so drastically that the game became all about bars, disses, and lyrical warfare. And in that environment, Academics said, it's nearly impossible for other rappers to drop projects and actually find an audience. The irony? Academics is complaining about exactly what Kendrick demanded: a return to competition, a reset of the culture away from the endless cycle of fast food mixtapes and disposable albums. For years, the industry flooded listeners with project after project, week after week, each one with a lifespan shorter than a trending TikTok clip. That was the gluttony Kendrick warned about, the circus of quantity over quality. And now, because that machine slowed down, Academics and Aiden Ross feel bold enough to scream, "Rap is dead." When in reality, Kendrick forced the culture to look in the mirror, and some people just didn't like what they saw. That same formula that once dominated the game, playlist-style albums stuffed with bloated track lists, party records, TikTok-ready hooks, and no real depth, ran hip-hop for nearly a decade. But the formula doesn't work anymore. Listeners are burned out. They're searching for something bigger, something with substance. And that shift, it might be thanks to the standard Kendrick Lamar set with his battle, with Watch the Party Die, with his demand to bring competition back into the culture. But here's the thing. Academics doesn't hate Kendrick because he killed hip-hop. He hates Kendrick because of what he represents. Kendrick isn't chasing clout, he isn't pandering for cosigns, and he isn't addicted to the circus of streaming numbers. He stands for patience, intention, and artistry, values that strip away the foundation of personalities like Academics and Aiden Ross. The death of the party means the death of their influence. That's why they're bitter. That's why they're loud. And the most chilling part? Every lyric Kendrick spit on Watch the Party Die came before Academics and Aiden ever started whining about hip-hop being dead. He already called it. Influencers talk down because he's not with the basic stuff. And what's the basic stuff? It's the empty music cycle, the gluttony of disposable content, the very machine that's collapsing right in front of us. When Academics got exposed for that vile Discord interaction with a 14-year-old, his empire cracked. Twitch banned him, YouTube went quiet as he took weeks off, and suddenly the loudest voice in Drake's corner was silenced. The same man who called rap dead was now on life support himself. The circus had turned on its own clown, just like Kendrick warned it would. When Academics finally crawled back from his hiatus, the impact wasn't the same. His views dropped, hate comments flooded his page, and the audience that once hung on his every word suddenly turned on him. The empire he had built off gossip, clout, and Drake's shadow was crumbling. And how did he try to recover? By focusing on hip-hop itself? Not at all. Because the truth is, guys like Academics don't make their money off real music commentary. They build their brands on spectacle, propaganda, and circus acts, not thoughtful breakdowns of albums or artistry. That's why when the Clips dropped their long-awaited project, Academics had nothing to say. When Joey Bada and West Coast rappers sparked a fresh lyrical beef, he stayed quiet. Even when Kendrick Lamar dropped GNX, a cultural earthquake in itself, Academics barely spoke on it. Why? Because it didn't fit his formula. There wasn't enough scandal, enough chaos, enough circus energy to feed his machine. So what actually brought him back into the spotlight after almost getting canceled over that disgusting Discord incident? It wasn't Drake, the man he'd spent years defending, co-signing, and pushing propaganda for. When Ack's brand was on life support, Drake didn't lift a finger to save him. Instead, the unlikely lifeline came from someone else. Someone who has been both obsessed with and hypercritical of Drake for years. Another clown in this 2025 circus, Kanye West. At the height of his social media implosion, Kanye called on academics to be his voice, to broadcast his raw thoughts, rants, and unstable outbursts to the world. And academics jumped at the opportunity. Because if there's one thing he knows how to represent, it's chaos. Kanye AS Clown Show gave academics exactly what he needed. A new spectacle to anchor his brand around, even if it meant amplifying instability for clicks. Controversy, clickbait, sensationalism, propaganda, and above all, gluttony. That's the recipe academics has thrived on. And it's exactly what fueled his so-called comeback. The irony? None of it had anything to do with real hip-hop. His second big boost back into relevancy didn't come from reviewing albums, breaking down bars, or celebrating artistry. Instead, it came from capitalizing on chaos, the kind of chaos that makes headlines, not history. During the explosive Diddy trial, academics went all in. Hour after hour, day after day, he covered every twist, every rumor, every accusation. His entire platform turned into a courtroom circus, documenting what Kendrick already described as the death of the party. And while the culture debated the fallout of one of hip-hop's biggest moguls, academics was celebrating the clicks. When Diddy walked away with what many felt was nothing more than a slap on the wrist, Ack was practically giddy. It wasn't justice that mattered to him, it was engagement. Numbers, views, content. And then Kendrick's words landed like a dagger. I feel for the women that deal with the clown and nerd stuff. Can't blame them today. They ain't really got much to work with. How? Many women harder than a lot of you guys. I would trade all of you for Nip. I can't be proud of you guys. That bar alone stood as the perfect antithesis to academics' reaction. Where Kendrick offered empathy, pain, and respect, Ack offered smirks and streams. Where Kendrick called out the weakness of men clinging to chaos, Ack embodied it. This is why they hate Kendrick Lamar, not because he killed hip-hop, but because he refuses to feed the circus. He is not with the basic stuff, and that rejection exposes the entire business model of personalities like academics for exactly what it is. Kendrick refused to step into the circus. He didn't waste energy adding fuel to the clown show we have been forced to watch unravel for the past 12 months. While the industry burned, he stayed silent, speaking only through his music, his performances, and his art. And that's exactly what they hate. They don't hate Kendrick the man. They hate the man he represents. He's the embodiment of everything the circus can't corrupt. I've said this before, and it's never been clearer. When OVO loyalists flood Twitter, ranting about conspiracies, crying about Drake suing labels, or spreading rumors about Kendrick running bots, it's never really about Kendrick. It's about the insecurity of knowing Drake can't be what Kendrick is. They say Kendrick built his popularity on tearing down Drake, but the truth? The loudest hatred aimed at him has nothing to do with his name. It has everything to do with what he stands for, everything Drake doesn't. Because let's be honest, do you think Drake's fans wanted this? To watch their idol spiral into a run of some of the weakest, most uninspired music of his career? Songs like Juan Delilah, BLD, Drizzy Meet Your Padre Tom, tracks that landed with a thud in a post-battle environment, tracks that felt more like desperate filler than statements from a king. This wasn't the legacy they signed up to defend. Yet Kendrick's silence made every flop louder, every misstep more embarrassing, every excuse more hollow. That's why the hate burns so hot. It isn't really about dissing Kendrick. It is about facing the brutal reality that their favorite artist, in the shadow of this battle, was exposed. And when you stack it against the man Kendrick represents, the contrast becomes unbearable. The list of Drake's missteps could run forever. Over 50 tracks released since the battle ended, yet how many truly left an impact? Barely any. Songs came and went like background noise, while Kendrick's every move cut deeper because it was rare, deliberate, and calculated. Kendrick didn't need to flood the market. His silence became his weapon, and when he finally stepped out, the numbers spoke louder than any diss track ever could. In 2025, GNX, an album released the year before, was still the highest-selling album of the year. He headlined the most-watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time, becoming the first rapper to do it, and turned it into a cultural reset. He pulled off the most-watched Amazon Music Live event with the Pop-Out, a moment so massive it blurred the line between a performance and a revolution. And then came his stadium tour, cementing him as not just a rap star, but a generational figure moving on a different level entirely. That's what drives Drake's fans crazy. They hide behind excuses. They scream about industry conspiracies, bots, and shadowy forces working against their idol. But the truth is simpler and harsher. Deep down, they're angry because Kendrick doesn't need excuses. He doesn't need smoke and mirrors. His art, his numbers, and his cultural weight do the talking. Meanwhile, Drake has been tearing himself down brick by brick, filing lawsuits against rap lyrics, criminalizing disses, trying to compromise freedom of speech in a game built on battle, losing the rap beef and then obsessing over it for over a year instead of moving forward, teasing a mythical red button track that never dropped, stringing fans along while feeding them scraps. Aiden Ross live streams, Iceman streams, awkward Central C previews with Yasin. Instead of cementing his crown, Drake alienated himself from the culture that raised him, dismissing American hip-hop altogether while propping up UK rap as superior. Kendrick doesn't even need to answer anymore. The contrast between the two speaks for itself, and the circus is folding in real time. Meanwhile, Drake has been spiraling into antics, obsessing over buying so-called American hip-hop artifacts just to flex on Kendrick, hoping the spectacle would shift attention back in his favor. But then the bombshell dropped. Many of those artifacts were allegedly fake. What was supposed to be a power move turned into another embarrassment, another sign that the circus was running out of tricks. And that brings us back to Kendrick's haunting line. Influencers talk down because I am not with the basic stuff, but they don't hate me. They hate the man that I represent. That's the truth at the core of all this chaos. Aiden Ross, DJ Academics, OVO conspiracy theorists on Twitter, every single one of them talking down on Kendrick isn't mad at the man himself. They're furious at what he represents. They're mad that his voice, patient, purposeful, powerful, has only grown louder and more undeniable since the moment he dropped Watch the Party Die. On the other side, the party collapsed. We've watched Diddy, Kanye West, Young Thug, Drake, Lil Wayne, DJ Academics all unravel in their own scandals, rants, and circus acts. And notice the pattern. Almost all of them, at some point in the last 12 months, had something negative to say about Kendrick or what he stands for. Yet here's the kicker. Through all the noise, all the accusations, all the slander, Kendrick never engaged. He stayed silent. He let the music, the performances, the numbers, and the culture speak for him. Because in the end, the prophecy of Watch the Party Die wasn't just a song. It was reality unfolding in front of us. The party didn't just die. The circus burned itself down, leaving Kendrick untouched, standing as the lone figure who never had to lift a finger to prove he was right. Drake straight up spiraled online, crashing out while his ops looked fragile as hell. Drake ES fans aren't actually mad at Kendrick Lamar. They were mad that Drake can move with the same quiet, surgical energy that Kendrick rocks with. Kendrick stays calculated and wins in silence, and that contrast eats at them every time. Like Kendrick spits in the track, they can't see the future first, and that truth cuts deeper than any diss. This lesson stretches far past rap. It's showing up in society at large. The same greed and short sight that flood the music scene feed the violence and division we've been counting in the streets. People parade in gluttony, chasing clout and quick wins instead of thinking long-term, and the fallout shows up in gun violence and broken communities. Kendrick was warning us to look up from the circus and plan for a better future. Later in the song, he says, "Their spirit is insecure. I see a new earth filled with beautiful people making humanity work." And that's the real mission. Build something worth following. But instead of stepping up, some folks double down on the chaos, hyping up reckless behavior and glorifying the plug life. We don't need literal violence. We need to cut the feed, expose the clout chasers, and shut the toxic trend down so the youth have something real to look at. This means calling out fake flexes, exposing the fakes, and refusing to reward empty spectacle. If you won't ride for change, then you are on the other side. There's a line in the sand, and this part of the party is dying. Kendrick ain't begging for followers. He's asking for a movement with meaning, not more clowns on a live stream. So choose your lane and stop feeding the circus. Real ones know the difference. Molly and those obvious degenerates ignore the hope I'm trying to spread. Plain and simple. At the end of the song, Kendrick S's final bars push that same idea. Everything messed up needs to be burned down and rebuilt, spoken as a metaphor to clear space for something real. Everything wrong with hip-hop, everything rotten in society, and all the toxic noise of internet culture need a reset so something better can rise from the ruins. It has to be demolished, not for chaos but for construction and repair. A new leader has to step up, set a harder standard, and actually show the youth what matters again. My guy Jay Estrada said straight, "I gotta burn it down to build it up." And that hit because sometimes a system is so rotten you can't fix it with band-aids. This isn't a call for real-world violence. It's a call to tear out the bad wiring and rebuild with truth, discipline, and purpose. Because today the party just died, and Kendrick reminded the world he's not the savior. He's got work on himself before he'll try to fix everything else. He says folks wonder why he's not hyped to drop nonstop, and that silence is deliberate. Being visible tests your spirit, and Kendrick chose patience and calculation over chasing clout while the circus screamed for drama. When the party collapses, people lose everything, and the vultures swarm the mess. Everyone gets incentivized to sell their agenda as the right side, and you see that in politics, media, and music alike. This beef exposed the split, one camp chasing spectacle, the other pushing for meaning. If you want real change, stop feeding the circus and start rebuilding, brick by brick, with honesty and standards the youth can actually follow. Lamar wanted the world to see the difference, plain and loud. He aimed to expose why the other side was less noble, basically a worse version of what hip-hop should be, and he did it by showing that Drake, and everything Drake stands for, is simply not like him. On September 11, 2024, Kendrick didn't just drop a song. He declared that the toxic machinery feeding the youth had to be smashed and rebuilt from scratch. The party had to be killed off as a culture, not as a threat, but as a rotten system that kept kids choking on nonsense. And that's where the real war lives, the spiritual hustle behind the headlines. Folks like academics and certain streamers, and yes, people in Drake's orbit, have serious incentives to keep that party alive because it fills pockets and powers platforms. Starting a spiritual revolution ain't easy. It messes with the money flow and the clout economy, and that's why the noise gets loud when someone actually tries to change the game. Kendrick spells it out. They wonder why I'm not enthused to drop, why I'm not incentivized to constantly drop records, parade in gluttony, be on the basic stuff, be everywhere all at once. He's not avoiding the spotlight because he's soft, he's choosing the long game. The more visible you get, the more your spirit gets tested, and the higher the stakes become. So when you try to lead a movement that aims to kill the party and rebuild the culture, expect forces to push back hard. They're protecting what lines their pockets. That's the point. Kendrick isn't fighting for followers or headlines. He's trying to reset the culture's compass. And the more he stays focused and patient, the clearer the contrast becomes between empty spectacle and something real that can last for generations. We are living in one of the most polarized, violent, emotionally explosive eras in history. Never before have we been so financially incentivized to push propaganda for our side, to weaponize opinions, to divide every space from politics to music to culture. And because of that, society itself looks fractured beyond recognition. Thoughts split, ideologies clashing, preferences turned into battle lines. What's the result? Violence in the streets, hate crimes on the rise, artists locked away, viral outbursts, beefs with no resolution, and a complete collapse of unity. But in the middle of all this chaos, there's been one man who refused to feed the circus. The one man who stood firm on killing off the party. For the last year and a half, Kendrick Lamar has moved differently, uniting his city, pushing past artistic boundaries, rejecting the clown show, dodging the empty narratives, and ignoring the propaganda that fuels everyone else's collapse. And here's the eerie part. He predicted all of this a full year before it happened. Watch the Party Die wasn't just a song. It was a blueprint of the chaos we've witnessed play out across hip-hop and society since. The circus folded on itself, and the silence Kendrick weaponized turned into the loudest voice in the room. So what do you think? Was this prophecy or just perfect timing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. The party is dead, and Kendrick Lamar proved it.